I'll wear it. I'm going home on Wednesday on the airport. I'm definitely going to wear it through the airport.
You're going to be in Baltimore?
Yeah, I'll be in Baltimore.
Dude.
Yep. I will be in Baltimore for 5 days, 4 days, 5 days.
I don't have my microphone out. Hold on. Move it forward. Make sure everybody. There we go. Make sure it was all okay.
All right, let's see. Bring up the chat. Get into live stream chat. It's a little quiet in here at the moment, but I'm sure that'll change. For those that are joining in, welcome aboard. We do this every Friday at 5:30 p.m. in front of a live studio audience that is not very alive. Whoa, and just like that, it's alive.
And all of a sudden, there they are.
Bugs, Michelle, Wirehead, crazy. The whole room just explodes with our virtually live studio.
Yeah, like the chat just went like, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Johnny.
Happy birthday.
What's going on, Kristen? Good to see you, Laura. James, hello. Welcome to the ThreeView Mirror Podcast, your weekly dose of all things 70s, 80s, and even 90s. Jim is in the house. Blister Bill and Jeff. Life, what's going on? Join in, pile in, grab a seat, make yourselves comfortable, and get ready as we take you on a journey into the past, where we discuss 3 very specific pop culture topics going back to the Gen X era we all grew up in. Every week, one of the 3 of us takes a turn, and we secretly come up with these topics all on our own and don't let the other 2 know what it's going to be. And we also don't let our virtually live studio audience know what it's going to be, because when we get together every week, we play a game. And this week, that game is, let's try to figure out what the hell Rochelle's going to do to us, because she's the host that's got up with 3 topics. And somewhere in those 3 topics, on the best of days, we can hope there is a connection. And by connection, I mean something connecting each of the 3 topics to each other. That's what would be nice in theory, but we've come up with this thing called shelling it, which is when Rochelle is the host, we're not necessarily guaranteed of, an actual connection. So hold tight, listen up, and hope for the best, because it's all Rochelle this week. So we'll see what's going on. My name is John Catrides, better known as Gen X Jono across my social media platforms. And I'm joined by my buddy Chris and Shell. Chris, say hello.
Hey, I'm Chris Clues, keynote speaker, author, book series on the life and work lessons that we can learn from 80s pop culture that you can find in bookstores and on Amazon. And keynote speaker on the topic as well. Since we're not going to be here for St. Patrick's Day, I call it St. Patrick's Swayze Day. I've got my happy St. Patrick's Swayze Day shirt on, in case you were wondering what this little ditto was here. That's my boy Swayze saying ditto on happy St. Patrick's Swayze Day.
Listen, that shirt is, I've never seen that before. I've seen a lot of t-shirts, and that should be like a wildly popular bestseller.
That's a first. I may steal that.
Yeah. Awesome. We already have guesses in the chat about what the answer is. They're like, it's the Goonies.
Calvin Klein.
Somebody else said we need a Shell It shirt. Yes. And just a reminder, because as always, John, we have to remind the live studio audience not to give away the connection in the chat.
I didn't think that was going to be necessary during your turn.
Do not give it away, because yes, we need to. This one, there is no Shell It for this episode. I'm telling you, this is a fantastic series of things. And just a reminder also to the people in the studio audience, I was the one that came up with the whole concept for the show. And yes, somehow I blew it for like the last 2 times that I was the person.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Let's throw a welcome into the ThreeView Mirror Podcast. All right, Shell, it is all you.
All right. Today's topics are the Blues Brothers.
All right.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And your favorite Muppet. across whatever Muppet movie, Muppet show, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock. I don't care. Your favorite Muppet.
Well done. I love it.
Okay.
And now, just question.
Yes.
Something connects these three.
Something connects these three. In fact, there's actually lots of
to each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
Flub says if she flubs it today, that's three.
Three. No flub today. I like I was like Santa Claus. I had my list and I checked it twice. So,
but we did find out right before the show started that Shell was very much like Santa Claus, had her list, checked it twice, and changed her topics.
Right? I changed my topics. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I had a topic for this week from last week, and then I was like, no, I'm changing it. This is going to be a short thing.
All right. So again, rules of the house. We're going to discuss each of the three topics for about 15 minutes. And then at the end, and only at the end, we will entertain guesses as to what the connection is. Because not everybody watches the show live, we want to make sure that in the comments, it allows people to play at home, not just our live studio audience. So again, let's keep the guesses at a wait until the end, and we'll see how we do.
Yep.
All right. Where do you want us to start, Shell?
I would love to start with the Blues Brothers.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think it's a mission from God. We had to start with the mission from God.
Why is it a mission from God?
Because that's what the Blues Brothers were. They were on a mission. They were on a mission from God.
God.
Well, they were on a mission from God.
Yeah. John, you never. Oh, I could tell by the look on your face. You've never seen it?
I know. I know they're a Saturday Night Live skit. I know it's Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi.
John.
Yeah.
John Belushi. Did I say Jim? I meant John.
Well, because it is Jim now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know who they are. I've seen their bit a little bit. Didn't hit me real hard. I wasn't a huge fan.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, Chris, we're going to hand this over to you now.
In fact, this is me with the Blues Brothers right there.
Oh, very cool.
Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi. I had a chance to meet them. This was probably 2013, I think. It was really, really awesome. And I always told myself that if I ever met Dan Aykroyd, one of my favorite movies is Spies Like Us. And I would walk up to him and shake his hand and say, "Doctor." If you remember that scene where he's like, "Doctor, doctor, doctor, doctor." And I did it on a whim, and he played with it and went, "Doctor." We went back and forth. He started laughing. He's like, "That most people do not come up and do doctor to me. They have other things like Saturday Night Live or the Blues Brothers, where they say we're on a mission from God."
So there was a movie as well as so it was the Saturday Night bit, and then there was a movie.
Oh, are you kidding me right now?
No.
You're hurting my heart.
Oh my God.
You're literally you need to just sell that T-shirt.
Well, hold on. No, because I'm not ruining. Like I just don't understand. I'm a little confused. So there was a bit.
Yes.
John Belushi was in a movie with Dan Aykroyd, and they did an entire movie.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't know that.
The whole entire movie. 1980, I think. This was more like my nod to the 70s, because it is a very 70s feel to it. But
so I'd have been 10. Which doesn't preclude me from having seen it. We saw a lot of stuff at 10 that we probably shouldn't have seen. It just, I didn't see it at the time. And it hit that sweet spot of there was no other way to see it once I missed it in 1980. There would have been no VHS for me yet. There was certainly no Blockbuster video or streaming or any of that. So I missed it. And then we get to 1985 and 1986, and an explosion of just so much came at us then that we've talked about it before. We miss really good stuff and just didn't get a chance to circle back. And I just don't like that type of comedy so much that it would have made me look at it as an adult.
So Kevin, in the comments, Kevin put the perfect line from the Blues Brothers, and you should put it up because it's where he says we're 300 miles from Chicago. And that you should watch it just because this quote in a nutshell is the Blues Brothers. And we know you've all seen Beaches, so you've got to put Blues Brothers on the list.
Listen, Blister Bill said, I'm working on his Gen X impeachment paperwork right now.
The joke's on you because I met Anthony Michael Hall about a month ago, and I've got a pocket pardon hitting it in a pocket somewhere. So I'm good.
Somebody else said on there, Blues Brothers has a great soundtrack. And Chris, I figured you would actually talk about the soundtrack a little bit because and they even made appearances. Somebody mentioned Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. They actually made appearances, guest appearances within the movie as well.
Yeah, in fact, the Blues Brothers is still a thing today. That's when I saw them in concert. And Jim Belushi, I mean, listen, nobody's John Belushi. I think Jim Belushi would probably tell you that. But the two of them together are awesome. In fact, John Goodman has actually been part of the Blues Brothers band at one point or another as well. And they've had a lot of famous people, a lot of famous musicians that have been with the Blues Brothers. So yeah, I mean, the music's awesome. The soundtrack, I'd have to go back and look at all the songs on the soundtrack, but I can just tell you that I think they had a song recently, maybe back in the early 2000s. I say recently, it feels like it hasn't been 25 years, but
who actually does the singing? Did they actually sing, or were they lip syncing?
No, they're doing the singing. Yeah.
And all I can hear in the back of my brain when I think of the Blues Brothers is the dun 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 dun. That portion of in the original movie, as all the time running through my mind. I mean, it is actually a really good movie.
Yeah.
It is one you might want to go back and see. And I know the studio audience here agrees.
I don't like John Belushi.
Really? You didn't like him?
I didn't like him in Animal House. I didn't like his bits on SNL. It's just I don't know. I know.
Yeah. What am I? Guess what I am?
Yeah.
That's it. Get it?
I just didn't. I mean, I know it's blasphemy in a sense. I just didn't think it was funny. But we've talked about this.
It's that you
don't like slapstick.
I don't like slapstick.
Yeah, you're not a fan of slapstick.
No,
like Caddyshack.
Nope, hated it.
Yeah, see, Caddyshack. I knew you didn't like Caddyshack. And we mentioned a couple other movies before that you were like, yeah, no, I couldn't watch them.
The darker the comedy, it's just the darker, the more obscene it is. My favorite comedy is when I think I'm fairly somewhat intelligent, but when 10 minutes in, I'm laughing at a joke that was 5 minutes ago because it was smarter than I am, and I'm finally catching on. That's when I'm like, all right, you got me. That I like. When it's obvious and in your face, it just doesn't hit me the same way, but I get why a lot of people love it, and that's cool.
I always felt like, and Chris, maybe you could talk about this too. I always felt like that the Blues Brothers comedy, specifically in the movie, was a very dry comedy. I didn't think it was slapstick much at all. It was more of a dry comedy, if you ask me. You almost, they said everything very dryly too. In fact, their acting was dry. It was meant to be dry, and that was the funny part of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the Blues Brothers, to me, if they would have continued to do more movies, I think there was a second one. If somebody can tell me off the top of my head, I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure there was a second one, or maybe Blues Brothers 2000. Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. But if they would have kept doing Blues Brothers sequels in the 80s, it would have been like Cheech and Chong, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So you had all the Cheech and Chong movies, those two together were just perfect. Nobody could be Cheech, nobody could be Chong. And I think that's why there weren't any more movies, because John Belushi died a few years later. And so you really couldn't replace him. And Jim Belushi at the time just wasn't ready, prepared. I don't even know if he was really old enough to really take that mantle from John. Maybe they were close in age, but certainly wasn't at a point to do it yet, which is maybe why they didn't have more sequels. But yeah, it is dry humor. It's definitely, you got to watch how they do it. It's, somebody mentioned Dragnet. It's very dry, and it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and like I said, the music was good. I don't know. I like the movie, and I'm not big on, and it was definitely a guy kind of a movie, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, maybe. For sure.
Yeah. And I liked it. So But I would have seen in 80, I would have been 7. So I must have watched it many, many, many years later. Maybe when I could have.
Now, Jim Belushi, I actually do like Jim Belushi, and I love Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, Dan Aykroyd's movies, things he's done, totally appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when they had the wish sandwich. What's a wish sandwich? When you got 2 pieces of bread and you wish you had some meat.
What was is that for Blues Brothers?
It's one of the song. It's in the song, like the song called Rubber Biscuit.
Because I can't quote the movie or anything. There's parts, you know what I mean? You get these feelings, and unless I watched it last week or very, very, very recently, I wouldn't be able to recall specifics. Chris, you are like a pro at figuring out like the quotes and the things from the movies that we all forgot about.
Or that we didn't watch, like John. Hey, Gray from Northern Ireland, you caught Alive. That's awesome, dude.
And it was funny you mentioned Cheech and Chong because as I was looking some of this stuff up, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi actually quit filming for a day. Yay! Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi quit filming for a day so that they could actually go nearby to a set where Cheech and Chong were filming one of their movies. So...
Sorry, I know exactly which one. Put the mouse back in the house.
The one where they go, oh!
Oh my God. We can't go through an episode without mentioning Friends.
Oh, it's impossible. There's too many things that connect back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing about the Blues Brothers is, it was really, it was great because it exposed people to blues music, which is awesome. And a lot of the music, the influences for the music on the soundtrack, and obviously with the Blues Brothers, if you've ever seen them, it's from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and it's like John Lee Hooker, and it's Chess Records. Chess Records had all these great blues artists. There's a great movie about it that I think everybody should watch if you're music people and you've seen the movie about Chess Records. But that was cool too, because this came out, 1980? So I was 10. So around 14, 15, I got into blues, and my buddy and I had harmonicas. We were terrible, but we thought we were good. And we were listening to a bunch of blues music, and I'm convinced it was because we heard or saw Blues Brothers and obviously thought the music was cool.
And the Blues Brothers are something like you can still buy a Blues Brothers Halloween costume today. I mean, they ended up, we were talking about SNL last week on your week, Chris, and the Blues Brothers are another one of those iconic SNL moments that actually reached into our everyday life and became something bigger than just a skit on SNL.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Was it one of the first? See, I didn't even realize it was a movie. That tells you how to touch I am. Was it one of the first SNL skits to move over to the movies? It started in SNL and then went to the movie, not the other way around. Correct.
Correct, but I have no idea. I would actually.
I'm trying to remember pre-1980. They started doing my God, even Pat had her own movie or his own movie or its own movie. They did so many movies that kicked over from SNL. Yeah. But it might have been the first then. If it was in 80, I don't know what would have come beforehand, because that more original cast, I don't remember I think that might have probably been the first one.
I would imagine you're right, because it's only 4 years in or 5 years in to Saturday Night Live. What could they have done at that point? I think they missed out on a Land Shark movie, but that's,
Yeah. But John, that was an excellent question, honestly. And I think that's a great way for us to pivot here and to pivot on. We've been 15 minutes, haven't we?
Yeah.
Especially since you have nothing to say. And once again, for the new people joining us, I will just say I'm talking to the chat window right now. John never saw Blues Brothers.
So wait, John, I know you don't like John Belushi, but I will ask you to do this. At least go YouTube John Belushi.
I've seen, like I said, I've seen clips. I thought I was just watching SNL clips. Really does nothing for me.
Even when he does Joe Cocker, High with a Little Help from My Friends. Oh my God.
Not even a little.
But that's not even slapstick. That's just so impressive that he could take a guy's
but it's not funny.
We're voting you off the island, John. We're voting you off the island. We're voting you off the island.
Listen, I'm happy because this removes all the Principal Vernon shit that I got before. Yes.
What about Principal Vernon?
Yeah. It's all gone now. What's the next
I don't know what
topic?
you're talking about. Let's pivot.
What's the next topic, Shell? That's a good pivot.
The next topic. Okay. So we talked about the Blues Brothers. Our next topic is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Never saw it.
You lie.
I lie like a rug.
You lie. There's no way. Honest to God, that was like prime time. What year did that come out? I did not look up the year it came out. I don't know if anybody hasn't seen that movie.
88, maybe?
88?
No, 86.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was
85 or 86.
I thought that was Raiders.
Yeah, Temple, because 89 was Holy Grail or Last Crusade.
84, actually.
84. Okay.
Temple of Doom.
So when did Raiders come out? Damn.
81. 81 was Raiders.
Okay.
And 89 was The Last Crusade. And
Which
then
I loved as well.
And then the rest of them
I
sucked.
did like that one.
They should have stopped there because the rest of them sucked.
Yeah, the first three, I liked all three of them.
Yeah.
No, I did not like the Crusader one, the 89 one.
Temple of Doom. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know. Temple of Doom was my absolute favorite. I loved Temple of Doom. The eating scene was one of my favorite scenes in the entire world, where they were eating all the weird bugs, and it was Kate Capshaw having to eat the whatever it was, the monkey brains.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I listen. I'm a huge indie fan, but I noticed, and I think we've talked about this before. Temple of Doom was the second one, and Spielberg, right? Back to the Future, second part, Spielberg. Both really dark.
Yes.
The first and the third, not dark. The second, really dark stories.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I would love to pick his brain about what is it about the second of a trilogy that goes dark?
He was criticized too for his portrayal of India a little bit, and for that movie, there was some controversy surrounding it because they said they portrayed India in a not great light for the movie, but I don't know. I absolutely loved it. But I want to give you a little fun fact, and it's a connection, and I don't know if anybody knows this. I will ask the studio audience first. It's a tiny connection. Connecting Indiana Jones is not the connection, but connecting Indiana Jones and the Blues Brothers. Anyone in the audience know connection? It was someone that had a cameo in Indiana Jones.
Well, let's wait and see what the audience says, because they're a few seconds behind us. But yeah, I would have one guess. And not Spielberg, I don't think, right? Did Spielberg have a cameo in Blues Brothers?
That's what Kevin's hitting, but that's all I'm seeing.
Yeah, I was waiting for the comments to come up.
Dan Aykroyd?
Dan Aykroyd.
Really?
Yes. Dan Aykroyd had an English accent, and he was the person shooing them at the airport off onto a plane. And you can actually look it up. Thought that was a fun that was just a little side connection there for you. So you can't that's not shelled, because there's a tiny little connection right there.
But that's not the connection.
That's not the connection.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody else mentioned that Tom Selleck was, original Indiana Jones, but he was under contract with Magnum PI. And look, we've talked about that before. It worked out.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Tom Selleck is Magnum PI. And thankfully for all of us, it worked out that way.
Sharon Stone was up for Kate Capshaw's role.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was going to be Sharon Stone. I don't know the reasoning why it didn't become her, but yeah.
And now Short Round won an Oscar.
Round just won, yeah.
Who? Short Round.
From Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and
from
Goonies.
Yeah.
Just checking, John, to make sure you've seen the Goonies, because you never know, right?
But I love Indiana Jones, the whole trilogy. I mean, The Last Crusade was my favorite, even better than the first one for me, and I'm sure I'm going to get.
No, I'm going to agree with you, Chris.
But I love The Last Crusade. Sean Connery.
The play back and forth, Sean Connery added something. You have Indiana Jones, who is this larger-than-life character for these first two movies that can do no wrong, that fixes everything. He does plenty wrong, but he fixes it. And just is such a strong character. And Sean Connery, in the first scene alone, their interaction, puts him in his place. You know, we named the dog Indiana.
Yeah.
that was my favorite as well.
And you saw how he got the whip, the scar, like, I mean, all that stuff was really, really cool. And River Phoenix, right? I mean, but the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, I love too. Like, these are the movies for me. Where are they? To me, it's kind of like, you know, when we talk about like, where is rock music today? We were talking about the rock and roll bands last Friday. Like, what happened to the bands that sell out arenas?
Right.
And, right. The same thing for these. Where are these movies? These fun, I mean, they come here and there, but these fun adventure movies with a guy going through the jungle. Like, I don't know. Like, I miss it. I miss that storytelling.
Top Gun has done the newest Top Gun and such. Maybe done.
It's not this though. It's not an Indiana. It's not a Back to the Future trilogy.
No,
it's not Star Wars. It's not this grand storytelling. But the other problem is they can't seem to get anything out quickly enough. You had a show like, well, what was the show we were talking about last week briefly that's on Apple TV? Severance. It was like 7 years between seasons to film 14 episodes, 8 episodes. Yeah. You know, Handmaid's Tale, same thing. It's forever to get from one to the next. For these trilogies to work, the actors can't age out waiting for the next installment. You know, we saw Back to the Future film part 2 and 3 simultaneously to get it done. All right, let it go already. I'm not going to summer school, and I'm not watching the damn movie.
You're going to summer school with Chainsaw and
But I already look like one of the guys, I'm told.
Chainsaw, and what was the other guy's name? Damn it, can't remember. Great underrated comedy, by the way. Summer School.
I get
that. Comment said that Spielberg had a cameo in Blues Brothers. He did. That was also another minor connection between just the Blues Brothers and Indiana Jones there too, is that Spielberg actually had a cameo in Blues Brothers.
But I think, Chris, that's why though. Honestly, they can't pump them out fast enough to make a trilogy work properly. Marvel made it work, right? The Avengers movies, they were committed, they got on a timetable and they made it work. But even those now, they can't seem to get those right now. It's just too much of a commitment to get all the actors willing to do it for a certain amount of money and to be on a timetable.
Yeah, I think the only one that's really, for me, like, you know, I don't know if anybody else liked it, but I love the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy.
Yeah.
And they did it, same thing, timeline. What was it, 5 or 6 years they pulled it off. So everybody kind of looks the same. And they were well done. They were fun, you know. But yeah, nothing compares. I mean, for me, the Indy trilogy, you know, we could have this discussion, but the Indy trilogy is the greatest of all, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, it's one of those movies you could watch over and over again. No, they just had the new one, maybe 2-3 years ago. A lot of people didn't enjoy it. I did. You know why? Because I just got to revisit my that series. I love this series. You know,
I get it. It's just maybe it's that you just can't go back thing, no matter how much you want to. I didn't even see it. I didn't see the Roadhouse remake, even though I've heard it was done well and it's the same actors. I didn't see Beverly Hills Cop, the newest one of those. I'm kind of, as much as I miss it, I'd rather go watch the originals over again than take a risk. Because once I see the new stuff, if it's bad, I won't be able to unsee it. I won't be able to unremember it. I won't be able to remove it from canon, as they say. It becomes part of the story forever. And I don't want to risk making it part of the story. It's like The Goonies having a sequel. Part of me is like, okay, this could be really fun. And then the other is they could ruin it forever. And so I don't go. I don't see it.
Well, I think I lost my train of thought. I just had the over 50 AARP card moment. When you were mentioning
and Kevin and a few others have also said, I've forgotten twice, Temple of Doom was actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. It came before it.
It did?
And I'd forgotten that.
It did?
Yeah, 2 people have mentioned
I guess that's why there were no Nazis, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And somebody else mentioned the last great trilogy was Lord of the Rings, which is a very good trilogy as well.
It is a very good trilogy. I will say that. That is absolutely an amazing trilogy.
Yeah. But Indiana Jones, never seen that. John's never seen that.
I've seen it.
But the Indiana Jones, back to the Temple of Doom, I remember it was one of the first, not the first, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Red Dawn the first PG-13?
It was.
And then Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom was right on the heels of that, because I think Red Dawn came out in August of 84. And so Temple of Doom had to have come out, I'm pretty sure, after that. And it was one of the first PG-13, probably for good reason. I mean, you have I was 11 years old, Raiders comes out. Of course, I go see it with my dad. I think so many kids went to see the first Raiders. And then the second Raiders, you got hearts being ripped out. And I'm sure people were like, whoa, wait a minute. This was not what I expected bringing my kid to. So it's very different.
Yeah, because it was dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely a dark movie.
Yeah, it was like human sacrifice.
Yeah, No Time for Love. And I loved, and I can't say his name properly, but we just called him Short Round. When Short Round talks, his cute little voice, but it was supposed to be his brother that was supposed to be cast in that role, actually. And he showed up with his brother, but his brother was supposed to be cast as Short Round.
Was it Temple of Doom that had the like mine car, that was Temple of Doom, right?
They were in a mine.
Yeah, and he was like roller coastering it on because I also had the Atari version of the game. And so there's certain scenes from the movie that I remember as the game as well.
Oh, the Atari game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could be remembering parts of the first one into the second one. It gets a little jumbled.
I am not caught up in John, you have to be going through the comments because slave labor. That was another reason that the movie received a lot of criticism, was child labor and kids getting beaten and different things like that. The portrayal of India. Yeah.
Freaking dark.
Mine Chase was the Temple of Doom. Okay. Yeah, there's certain things that, and that's what I was going to say. Temple of Doom, the Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark with a giant ball coming down in that scene. There were things that were created in these movies that would become parts of pop culture. And that's something I love to talk about, is when something transcends a movie, transcends a plot, and now becomes something they use on The Simpsons, something that they'll use on Family Guy, something that they'll use on Big Bang Theory. You know, it'll just enter into this pop culture. And the minute you see it, you're like, okay, I remember where that came from. Yeah. And then there'll be a next generation that sees it and may not ever know what to attribute it to. But they know that there was this thing that when you pulled it, all of a sudden this giant ball came and tried to crush you.
And as far as soundtracks, Chris, like the you could still hear the dun 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 dun, 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 dun. Like, and you could say those, you could just hum those, and and everybody knows it's in.
That John Williams? That was John Williams, right?
Yeah.
Had to be.
Yeah.
And that the scenes you mentioned, and the first one with the big rock, and the second one with the when they were on the coal, was it like coal tracks or whatever?
Yeah, the mine track.
Mine track. I mean, they had to do that. There was no CGI.
Right.
Like, they actually had to do that, and that's what to me is more impressive. I'm going to keep bringing it up. Mm-hmm. The practical effects, the real sets, the real cinematography. It makes a difference. When you know that even though if the big rock was paper mache, whatever, they still had to do that scene, and probably multiple times, and they couldn't rely on just run in place and then we'll put everything behind you. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and when they did that sort of thing, and at times they used green screen technology. It was fairly new in the late 70s, early 80s, and we were still kind of enamored by it. Like, the flying scenes from the Superman movies, you look at them now and they border on laughable. Mm-hmm. My 13-year-old sees it and she's like, wow, that's really bad, Dad. But at the time it was new and different, and it was special effects. And there was something very cool about the mix of use your imagination and then no, we have to do it for real. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. We're going to bring in the stunt people. We're going to build the set and we're going to make it real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what John said too about the years between, because the reason I didn't want to see Destiny of Dial, or the Dial of Destiny, whatever it was, is because I don't want to see Indiana Jones weak and feeble and having to get help from someone else. Yeah. That's not Indiana Jones to me. And so if he would have passed the baton to, I don't know, Chris Pratt or whatever, somebody's
even that would have been sacrilege.
But it would have been sacrilege, but I would much rather not see him like helped up. Like, he's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you do that, you got to do it quick. I think the reason James Bond works as a franchise where you can keep changing James Bond is they did it early and often.
Yes, right.
So you can't let a character get solidified. And it came close with Sean Connery. Especially some boomers will tell you that Sean Connery was James Bond and that's it, end of story, done. But us Gen Xers caught the tail end of Sean Connery and saw Roger Moore come in, saw Pierce Brosnan jump in, and then Daniel Craig. We were used to the idea of who's going to be the next Bond. And so we were okay with it.
Yeah, and I just don't like to see these bigger than life characters. You know, they did a great job with the Rocky movies, right? So Rocky ages out, but what does he do? Right? He becomes the mentor, the manager, the inspiration behind the fight. That's the perfect way to do it. Not put him out there, thinking, oh man, he's got a bum knee. He's got a bad back. Like, no, that's not Indy.
Totally unrelated. That question came up and it's actually being answered in the comments. Favorite Batman, side note, whatever. I like him. It depends. I grew up watching the show. Adam West was cool as hell. It was fun to watch. Michael Keaton, I did not expect to like. We were like, Mr. Mom, as Batman is going to ruin it. Yeah. And he was awesome.
Or the Joker. I mean, we've had a lot of iterations of the Joker over the years too.
Yeah. Christian Bale. And they can change. And I guess that connects it. We got used to who's going to be the next Batman. Yeah. They wouldn't let him age out. So I'd be okay with another Indiana Jones if maybe they had done it already.
Yeah, right.
Somebody goes, poor Timothy Dalton, forgotten his Bond again.
Oh my God, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't think that they could replace. They can't replace Indiana.
They had a chance, and I'm wondering if they were targeting River Phoenix.
Maybe.
And he passed away less than a year later. So
the timing would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, and
let him grow into the role.
He would have been a great Indy.
Yeah. And maybe not even Indy, because that's more of a passing of the baton. The Robin to his Batman, let him grow into his own character and take over that part without taking over the actual role.
Well, he'd already played the young Indy, so you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I forgot about that part in the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Temple of Doom, totally dark. I mean, Back to the Future 2 had domestic violence, and Indiana Jones 2, Temple of Doom, had people's hearts being ripped out. Like, I need to know this. I want to know this answer. Why? Yeah. Why were the second ones so dark?
Yeah, they were really dark.
From my perspective, I can say that Steven Spielberg does so much, has done so much, has this huge library of just art that he's put on the screen for all of us to see. Maybe just, okay, I did this, now I'm going to do that.
And he's Steven Spielberg. He could do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford nominated River Phoenix to play him as a teenager.
Interesting.
Oh. Well, that was awesome.
Good choice.
Yeah, it was. River Phoenix was, his star shined bright and burned out early. And it's a shame. It's a shame.
He was on his way.
Yeah. I love Joaquin, too. I love Joaquin.
He's awesome.
But River would have been right up there with him.
The somebody mentioned the Harrison Ford Jeep commercial, which is great, by the way.
I haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen the Jeep commercial, it was on Super Bowl. It was a long one, like a minute and a half on the Super Bowl, but it's really well done. And at the end, he says something like, I'll never own anything but a Jeep, and my last name is Ford. Like, it's really clever.
Oh, I did see that one. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he looks like a guy that would be in a Jeep, so it kind of works.
Yeah. And he's 80 something now.
Is he really?
Oh yeah. 80.
I don't know how that's possible since I'm sitting here at 36.
Yeah, 82 maybe, something like, he's old.
Letting your mouse out of the house at 36 still.
Mouse is nowhere near out of the house. You relax, young man.
All right, so
it's 82 degrees here. How hot is it where you are?
Me?
Yeah.
It was 81 today. It's going to be down to like 65 tonight, so we'll have a little.
Yeah, we're in the 80s. Is that snow out there, Shell?
What's that?
That's not snow out there.
No, that's it's just bright outside.
Okay.
We actually reached into the 70s in the last couple of days.
Okay, good.
So it was awesome. Like, we were actually outside. I have short sleeves on, and somebody said they like my shirt. By the way, it's Queen.
Wait, mine's better. Come on.
I do like. Listen, I need your shirt.
Swayze Day. Happy St. Patrick's Swayze Day. Come on.
All right, we talked about the Blues Brothers. We made some tiny connections between the Blues Brothers and Indiana Jones, which is not the connection. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Now I want to talk about our third topic is that fun little topic. And I know the audience is going to have a good time with this. It is your favorite Muppet. And I don't care what franchise of Muppet you talk about, the original Muppet Show, any, Sesame Street characters, it does, Fraggles, whatever, Muppets.
Wow.
Or your least favorite. I should say that, your favorite or your least favorite.
I love the Fraggles.
Mm-hmm.
I love Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
And they're
I wish I'd gotten a chance to see it. I didn't have cable. So I was not stuck with. I loved the Muppet Show, but I only got the original iteration because we never had cable to watch Fraggle Rock.
It's coming back around. God, off the top of my head, my favorite is probably Animal.
Okay.
I just think he was absolutely nuts. It's so awesome.
I used to like Janet because she was in the band.
The band.
Well, Kevin, you're going to hate my answer then. Because the older I get, the more I truly appreciate Statler and Waldorf.
Absolutely.
I just love them sitting up there and just the one-liners, the double entendres, the jokes we didn't quite get at the time. Mm-hmm. Now I go back and I see them up there and I'm like, all right, that's good. Yeah. That works.
I also like the Swedish Chef.
Somebody else mentioned
which probably today would be culturally insensitive because they're mocking his accent.
No.
The Swedish Chef and Beaker, I think was one of my Beaker and Bunsen Dr. Bunsen.
Yeah.
Dr. Bunsen was one of my favorite characters. Beaker just sat there with that beep, beep, on his. There were so many of them.
And you got to bring in, there's Snuffleupagus. At first I was going to say, well, that's Sesame Street, but Sesame Street were Muppets.
Yeah.
It all counts.
Somebody earlier mentioned Gary Gnu. Somebody mentioned Gary Gnu from the Great Space Coaster.
Yeah.
No GNUs is good GNUs without Gary Gnu.
Yeah. And SNL actually had, Saturday Night Live actually had a whole like Jim Henson segment on it, since we were talking about Saturday Night Live last week, called something Into the Gorge or something. It was a real short-lived segment where they actually used Muppets on Saturday Night Live.
Really?
With adult humor. Yeah. In 70s, this is connecting back to the 70s in the early portions of Saturday Night Live.
Well, those of you in the live studio audience, the comments are incredible. You guys are coming at me fast and furious. Mm-hmm. I'm doing my level best to keep up because there's so much we want to share. And the point of the show is you guys are as much a host as the three of us. Your comments are equally valid. And that's why we love having you here live. And long after the show ends, the episode lives on and people will watch it after the fact. And your comments showing up on the screen are literally part of the show.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people mention Labyrinth. And if you like Labyrinth, there's a new Labyrinth coming out. They just announced that Robert Eggers, who I love as a director, who did Nosferatu, the remake of Nosferatu, and Lighthouse, Northman, really a perfect director for a new Labyrinth. And the kids, the son and daughter of Jim Henson, have signed on. So they're going to be using the Muppets in the real Muppets, not CGI, not any of that garbage. It's going to be the real Muppets. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens.
Somebody said ring ring. Yep, 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 yep.
Phenomena.
Take it easy, Dave. Thanks for jumping on. Everybody has their favorites, without a doubt. Favorite Muppet, favorite skits. People mentioned Pigs in Space. What I loved about what Henson was able to do with the Muppets is they weren't just puppets. They weren't these inanimate things. When people would come onto the show, interview after interview after interview would talk about how whenever they interact with the Muppets, they would almost forget that they're not dealing with actual people. And It's just they bring on, they become alive in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you saw the one that gets thrown around every so often. It comes back around with the little girl, and I can't remember which Muppet it is, but she kind of threw him off where they're doing the alphabet. I think it was pretty sure. Or maybe that was a boy that was doing the alphabet, and there was a little girl that did something else. But to your point about them feeling real and how they did that, it's pretty amazing to think they were essentially puppets, but they just were able to make them so expressive that they felt real.
And Chris, just to bring you into this, you had a puppet when you were younger.
Ventriloquist puppet.
A ventriloquist puppet, right?
It's disturbing. Yeah, it's disturbing. I mean, I did have another puppet. Hermie was my main one. He was like Hermie. I just found him again. Like he was at my mom's house, and it's like this little dinosaur named Hermie. It was a little puppet. But yes, I had a ventriloquist doll. It was very disturbing. Yeah.
Tickle Me Elmo. Yeah, Tickle Me Elmo was an entire thing for a whole generation of.
What's his face from Curb Your Enthusiasm? And writing on writer on Seinfeld. Oh my God! Someone help me with the name.
With what?
The main actor on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was a writer on Seinfeld.
Oh,
oh my God. Someone please.
Larry David.
Yes.
Larry David got himself in a little bit of trouble during an interview. He was just joking around, and he like hid or pretended to choke the Elmo doll, the Muppet that he was going to, and people went nuts. Like they're like, "What are you doing?" But he was just being funny. He's like, "What? It's an inanimate object. It's not a big deal." And people are like, "No, kids are watching." And that's Elmo. Even if kids aren't watching, what's wrong with you? He got more hate for that than I got for not having watched Blues Brothers earlier today. He really landed in it for a minute there.
So this was my ventriloquist doll, and the creepiest part about it was that he came out of the box dressed like me on Christmas morning. It was very bizarre, but that's me and my ventriloquist doll. A very creepy Christmas gift. It's like Mr. Marbles from Seinfeld. He literally has the same outfit as me. Like, how does that happen? That's so weird and scary and bizarre. Yeah. That was my doll.
So was there any consensus? John, you were watching the things scroll by. Was there any consensus on
Animals popular? The old guys were pretty popular. Oscar didn't get as much love as I would have thought, considering, you know, I kind of liked Oscar a bit. No, I did not see Kermit come up once.
He came up once.
Did he? That kind of surprised me. I think Kermit's a favorite, but like just a comfortable, warm blanket kind of favorite. You know, when you hear Kermit the Frog sing Rainbow Connection, I'm just instantly, if I need to get my blood pressure down, and just go to Gen X doesn't really have safe spaces, but we have happy places. And for me, like Kermit singing Rainbow Connection is a happy place.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Absolutely. That I could. Oh, that song! He's sitting there on that little log with that banjo. Absolutely, one of my favorites. One of my favorite characters too was also Miss Piggy. I actually had a Miss Piggy paper doll. She was about this big. I still have her somewhere in my house. I couldn't find her. I was gonna bring her, but she was a giant paper doll, and she lived in her own little suitcase, and you could change your clothes on her. And she's in great shape, like most Gen X toys. Even though it was a paper doll, we took really good care of our toys, I think, when we were younger. And I liked her because she was sassy. She was sassy. She didn't, and she thought she was the bee's knees, you know, no matter what. So yeah. I like
Michelle,
that.
I did a video where I'm playing a uke because I didn't have a banjo. I've got a uke and I'm sitting on and just doing
that one.
It did really well, and it just made me happy.
Yeah.
You'll be able to relate to this, Shell. And Chris, maybe a little bit with like speeches that you've done that worked really well, and you can revisit them. But has there ever been a video, Rochelle, where generally speaking, we'll watch our own videos and then we'll put it out there and then we'll live in the comments and maybe try to engage with people. But I don't very often rewatch my own videos. That was one of very few that it made me happy to rewatch it a few times.
Yeah, I've had a few of those videos where like I watch it, maybe I was being so goofy and I'm watching the expression on my face going,
Yeah.
wow, you were so happy, or wow, that was like whatever. I have done that quite a few times. Yeah.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned. I'm going to start a conversation in the chat. I just know it, but I'm surprised nobody mentioned Bert and Ernie.
Yeah,
I
Bert
mean,
and Ernie.
they were like, all these Muppets seem to be just still pop culture relevant. I mean, they have pop culture relevancy. I think they will long after we're gone. They just established these little brands, and but Bert and Ernie, for real. I mean, that was a big part of the what? Oh my god!
I thought it said one thing. I clicked it on the screen and it said another.
Wow. Okay. What just happened?
It's time to play the music.
It's
Wirehead
time to
said
light
it's
the lights.
lights.
It's time to get things started on the Muppet Show tonight.
Yes.
I don't know. For me, Down in Fraggle Rock is almost like
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
I absolutely loved Fraggle Rock. It was an HBO show from what I can recall. Yeah. I was actually sad when they moved Sesame Street to HBO because it's on HBO now, correct?
Still on PBS.
What's that?
It's still available on PBS.
Is it? Okay. I didn't know. The furries better than you.
Hey, Ernie.
Because of that weird. No, because of that
Bert?
weird puppies thing. Somebody just put the furries.
Oh, sure, Bert. That's a.
Oh God.
Sure, Bert.
That is a dad joke. That's a dad joke.
That took me a minute. You guys never mentioned Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds. No. That's Thundercats. What's Thunderbirds?
Thunderbirds.
Sorry, Great Jedi.
Babies, we make our dreams come true.
Did you watch the Muppet Babies cartoon? Were you young enough that was a big thing for you?
Yeah. I caught it on TV a couple of times. I don't recall like being addicted to it, but I recall having watched it.
I remember my parents hating the Muppet Show. And me and my older brother, my younger brother, like huddle up and we'd get it started and we'd hope they didn't notice what was on because it especially with the language barrier, I don't think they caught what was there for the adults and they just didn't get it. For them, it was just stupid. Thunderbirds are go. I know Thundercats go, yo, ho, hunt, Thundercats ho. I got to look that up.
One of the cool things we didn't talk about the Muppets, and again, this is something we bring up often, is one of the things I remember about the Muppets is when they would have one of their primetime specials, and it would be on at like maybe 8:00, and I got to stay up to watch it in the living room, and it was like some special moment, kind of like the Laugh Olympics that would come on a Saturday night with all of your cartoon characters in the mornings, but it came on at 8. And so you had to like, please, can I stay up from 8 to 9 to watch, the Muppet special or, Laugh Olympics or whatever it was. And it does take me back to like sitting Indian style in front of the TV in my pajamas, my feety pajamas, knowing that as soon as the show was over, I was like, okay,
as soon as it's over,
bed. Go to bed.
Yep. Didn't have to wait for the MASH theme to know it was time for bed.
Yeah.
or to see the bars, hear the national anthem,
Well, I don't know if you got to stay up that late.
That's what I'm saying. Like there was maybe on a Friday or something, you've seen the bars and yeah.
Or you would hear Carol Ann in the TV.
The buzz. Yeah. So, okay. We talked about, these are our 3 topics. We talked about the Blues Brothers, we talked about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and your favorite Muppets. So, any idea about the connection?
Calvin Klein.
Wait, is life in here just going to be like, the connection is Calvin Klein?
One of these days it will be, so I'm just going to keep saying it every
you're
time.
Going to get it right.
Cowtails?
Cowtails, Calvin
Cowtails?
Klein.
Oh my God, no.
Kids Incorporated, good show. I enjoyed that. Kids Incorporated.
I never watched that one.
Frank Oz.
And we know it's not Dan Aykroyd because you already mentioned that.
It was a minor connection.
Because I figured he was on the Muppets at some point. So many people were.
So many people.
Did Jim Henson have anything to do with the animatronics or special effects, perhaps, in Temple of Doom?
I think he did. I don't know. That's not the answer.
Was it Life Says, is it Calvin Klein?
See, that's what I said. I said I knew Life was in here. And
Kevin says Star Wars. So, Star Wars, thinking along Kevin's line, we have Harrison Ford can connect to Star Wars.
Was it Harry?
Jim Henson with Yoda can connect to Star Wars.
Yeah, but we didn't have Star Wars. We're not
Star Wars being the connection.
Oh.
And
the connection is Star Wars. How do we
Wow.
Blues Brothers, you're going to lose me because I don't know.
How do we get to Blues Brothers, Chris, with Star Wars?
Well, let Kevin answer it.
Yeah, I want to see what Kevin says.
Yeah.
But
Kevin, possibly John Williams, the theme song, but
I have two ways that it might connect. But let's just see what somebody else says.
John Williams is an excellent answer, by the way. I don't know his connection to Blues Brothers. He quite possibly could be a mystery other connection. John Williams did do the Indiana Jones soundtrack as well as the soundtrack for Star Wars, but I don't know if he had anything to do with.
So I'm not, Kevin, any last call, buddy, on how we connect Blues Brothers to
Blues
Star
Brothers.
Wars? Carrie Fisher was in Blues Brothers, so that connects it right there.
Yep, Carrie Fisher. And actually, there's another thing. Frank Oz, and it was mentioned by whoever in here. I forget. It scrolled by too fast now. Carrie Fisher actually was who they called mystery
Jose
woman.
said Frank Oz. Yeah.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher was the mystery woman that was in the movie The Blues Brothers, and she was the one that was constantly after Jake for leaving her at the altar. She was trying to blow him up. She was trying to kill him. She was trying to shoot him, and she is credited as being Mystery Woman. It was one of her first roles after having done the Star Wars series. Interestingly enough, because this was such a big production, Frank Oz had a lot to do with the Blues Brothers, and he has a cameo in the Blues Brothers as well. Frank Oz appears as a corrections officer in the movie, and there's a very famous line in the movie that says, "Do you have a Miss Piggy?" Which is when they go into a Toys R Us store. Do you have a Miss Piggy? So then there's a little connection to the Muppets there. So there's all kind of like I'm taking the pins and the strings and putting them all together here, right? And of course, I handed you Harrison Ford on a silver platter, but do you know who wrote and helped to write the Temple of Doom?
George Lucas.
George Lucas. Okay. And so then your favorite Muppet, obviously we have Jim Henson. We think of Jim Henson, but Frank Oz was actually right there as well. Also connects to the Blues Brothers. And Frank Oz is who? Who is Frank? Like, who was he in Star Wars? He's Yoda.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
He's Yoda. I handed you Yoda,
now.
Princess
You
Leia.
took a perfectly clean connection, and now I can't even remember what the
I got
topics
tons
were.
of connections. So the connection is Star Wars. But anyway, there was so much to it, and I absolutely love this one because the connect, and I wanted to put in, so I handed you Harrison Ford, Princess Leia, and I handed you Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Yoda.
And Yoda.
I wanted to hand you Luke Skywalker, but guess why I couldn't?
Because he didn't do anything else after that.
Because he really didn't. Someone in here mentioned Pigs in Space.
Yeah, he was in that.
He was in Pigs in Space. But also, we talked about the Joker. I mentioned the Joker. He is very famous for being the voice of the Joker in Batman the Animated Series.
Yes, he is.
So you did a great job, Shell. Like you went overboard with the connection so that nobody could say you shelled it.
No.
There's like 6 different ways this Sunday to get to this connection. Well done. Well done.
And Scott's asking, was Calvin Klein a connection too?
Calvin Klein was the connection, yes.
I figured.
Well, I guess it's somebody had a Calvin Klein on somewhere in each one of them.
One would guess.
Here's the challenge with something. as big. We had to talk about Star Wars at some point. We had to talk about something as big as Indiana Jones. How do you take something that big and narrow it down? Because they are cultural icons. Star Wars, we mentioned trilogies too. Empire Strikes Back being the darkest of the Star Wars trilogies, you know?
Right.
So
I don't know. Jar Jar Binks was pretty dark.
Jar Jar Binks just sucked.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna say this because I can probably get it, maybe or may not get away with it because of all the things that John admitted he didn't like. I was never a big Star Wars fan.
Oh, thank God you're gonna vindicate me.
It never got. I mean, listen, I watched them all and I appreciate them, but I never I wasn't the kid that Star Wars wasn't what got me. It was Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was who I wanted to be. It was when I went into the woods with my friends, we were either Indiana Jones or we were Rambo. Those are the two things. And we were exploring, looking for whatever, old beer cans. We would find the Steel City beer cans. They were so popular back in the day. But those were the two that I wanted to be, not a Star Wars character.
Carrie Fisher and Dan Aykroyd were engaged.
I will say that Harrison Ford is Han Solo, but with a whip. I mean, it's the same character. They're they're both the pirate. They're both the swashbuckler. He played the same character in both of those. Just one was, but it's the same guy.
Yeah, I
love Star Wars.
I watched them, but they're not rewatchables for me.
Wow.
Yeah. See, and I really, really did want to hand you. I figured Corvette Summer. Someone mentioned Corvette Summer. I never saw it. I figured you guys never saw it.
No.
8 is enough. I wasn't sure how to hand you Mark Hamill.
8 is enough.
Yeah, and it was that. He did a lot of stage work.
So 8 is enough. I mean, the only reason he got to do Star Wars is he got out of that contract. He was David.
Yes, he was the young. He was replaced by, I can't remember the other name.
Grant Goodeve.
Yeah, and
how did that?
That was just a Will Ferrell old school debate moment right there.
Dude,
you just can't deal with that one.
So, what do you think?
I think it was phenomenal.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. I love it.
But you know what they say? Even a blind squirrel gets a nut sometime.
Speaking of nut,
I can't sit like an adult in a chair. I cannot. I'm either cross-legged, Indian style on the chair. I'm sitting on my legs. I cannot sit like an adult. Even when I was in banking, regional vice president, holding up meetings, I had to stand because I could not sit like an adult.
I don't know, man.
Looks like the consensus is you did a great job.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now listen. I'm not taking away from the cultural impact of Star Wars by any means at all. I mean, come on, one of the biggest. I mean, in terms of product marketing and all of it just the extensions that it has over generations. What is that?
Is it?
Oh my God.
Are
you kidding me right now?
Everybody has a lightsaber. And if you didn't have a lightsaber, you pretended to have a lightsaber in your yard, I mean, they were sticks. I mean,
I will say my favorite characters were the Jawas. I don't know why.
Really?
But I like those little dudes in the desert or whatever with the brown, the monk type things on with the little red eyes, right?
I was afraid you were going to say Ewoks.
No, I like the Jawas. They were I don't know why they always, maybe I just like the name.
The further connection, too, is the idea that there was a lot of puppetry used in the original Star Wars movies, too. Jabba the Hutt, and it wasn't really puppetry, but, R2-D2 was a man, he was inside. He was a little person inside of there. All the ones at the cantina. Then here's another little fun connection. In Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, one of the, bars that they go into, something like that, was actually called the Obi-Wan.
I do not have to hand in my Gen X card. No.
If I get to keep mine, you get to keep yours. I'll give you a pass. Listen, that's the thing about it. The beautiful thing about this show that Shell helped create and put in and is still credited with the idea, even though she doesn't always execute her own idea well. Today she crushed it. But the beautiful thing about it is we all shared so much. And yet, even within this vast Gen X pop culture, us former 70s, 80s, and 90s kids, it wasn't universal. And in that's where the fun is. It's when Chris doesn't want to watch Dirty Dancing. It's, you know, when Shell keeps like messing things up because she just doesn't quite get it right. It's me taking, you know, I finally saw Fast Times at Ridgemount High. It doesn't matter whether we've all seen these things or not, because they've transcended their movie. It's gone beyond its place. Blues Brothers doesn't just exist within that movie. It's everywhere. Raiders of the Lost Ark, you could have never seen any of those movies and you know who Indiana Jones is. Are we still doing that in the world today? Are we creating Indies and Lukes and C-3POs? Are we creating Oscar the Grouches and Kermits? I would say we're not.
No.
And I'm hoping I'm not just the old guys in the, you know, Statler and I don't want to be the old guys in the Muppets saying things suck today, but objectively, I don't think we're still doing these things.
I'm sure there are a few timeless characters that have been created over the last 25 years. However, if you look at the stuff that's been successful, back to your point about the Marvel and DC stuff, that existed well before. Those weren't characters that were created today.
Correct.
I mean, they've all been created in the past. And then if you look at some of the other characters that we talk about that have become or becoming iconic, a lot of them are from the past. And then they've been redeveloped for today.
Or they borrow heavily on the past. You mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, those the mixtape he creates, there was no pop culture like an 80s pop culture. And I'm trying to say that objectively. I know it's hard for me to be objective. I mean, my name is Gen X Jono, for crying out loud. I get that. I see where my bias is, but I still think I'm right.
I think you are.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, even the Creed franchise, like you could argue that maybe Creed down the road will be an iconic character 30 years from now. These kids will look back and say, yeah, Creed was our guy. But a Creed is part of who? Apollo.
Yeah.
And who, you know, got him into the ring again? It was Rocky. And so, and even in the second one or third one, they bring Drago back in and his kid fights Creed. So it's just.
Well, and even like somebody said, like Karate Kid coming back with Cobra Kai, which if you haven't seen the last installments of it, they did it proud. They went back to the roots. They ended it. So for those of us that loved how the 80s always gave us the ending we wanted, you know, and I was reading an article somewhere that said the 80s gave the people that bought the ticket the thing they bought the ticket to see. And that's what Cobra Kai finally did for us. And that's what's missing. I'm buying the ticket. Give me what I paid to see. Don't try to teach me a lesson. Don't try to shock me. Give me what I paid to see. Somebody mentioned Deadpool potentially, but it was but again, that's been around forever. I thought so too. I wasn't sure, but maybe I'm wrong. No, Deadpool's an old. He's been around forever. I read about Deadpool in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. So I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, do they have? And even we've talked slasher films on here. Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. That's pop culture. That's iconic. Yeah. What do you see kids dressed up as at Halloween? Jason, Freddy Krueger, Scream, Jason. I mean, Scream might have been Ghostface, might have been the last. Yeah. But even that's what, late 90s, early 2000s, which Mid-90s. You would say, oh, that's new, but it's still almost 30 years old. Oh my God. That's so scary. I know when you think about it, sometimes you're like, oh my God. Well, we've talked about it at Christmas. You're like Miracle on 34th Street. I'm like, which one, the old one or the new one? Well, the new one's 40 years old, John. Yeah. The new one is older now than the old one was then. Oh, when we talked about that at Christmas time, I remember that. Yeah. So I do want to mention something though about Star Wars, just going back to the connection, because one thing I will say I really appreciated about it, and obviously when you go back, you see the difference in the special effects, but man, were they good with that modeling.
the modeling that they did for the Death Star and everything else was incredible for the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're really like, what did it come out in 77? I think Star Wars 77.
77 for Star Wars.
So they must have filmed it in 75 or 76. Let's give them 76 and say it came out in later 77. Yeah, how they did that with those special effects is pretty incredible when you think about what special effects looked like prior to when it came to sci-fi. Really
Even take away the special effects. In a world filled with laser guns, the 70s were dirty with laser guns, phasers and laser guns, and they recreated the sword. They went a different, more romantic way about it. You know, there was something graceful about the lightsaber as they were battling the stormtroopers with the old school guns. Somebody put it best that Star Trek was science fiction, Star Wars was science fantasy. Yes. It was this fantasy that they came up with the Force, and the science fiction helped them tell the story, but it wasn't about the guns. It wasn't even about the lightsabers. It was about this fantasy that existed between the Jedi and the Sith, and they built all of that around it. It was genius.
Yeah.
Lucas is a genius.
Yeah.
He built a space opera.
Yeah, that's what they call it. The space opera. It's in, I mean, children today are still going down and staying in like the suites at Disney World that are Star Wars themed. Kids still identify with it.
You say space opera. Thank God they didn't make it a musical. Oh.
Well, there was the holiday special.
Oh, just horrific.
Oh, you know, I was actually going to mention that, but then I was like, I can't give this away. The holiday special, which was like one of the worst.
Worst. They only showed it once and then hid it for years.
Yeah, and then it finally showed up online again a couple of times. So, yeah.
Well, so absolutely
awesome.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And just an incredible way to transition into this episode is everything that is great about this show.
Yes. Because we got to talk about 3 fantastic topics in and of themselves. And that is what makes this so wonderful. And then the 4th topic isn't just, hey, let's reveal it. Now let's talk about it.
Right.
And so we actually have that 4th topic that is the string between them. That is the, 6 degrees of separation between these things. And there's so many connections. And I think it was Wirehead. I wanted to point out something that Wirehead said. He said it in back. Crap. Now I lost what he said in my mind. I was going to wrap this up with a little bow. Something that he said.
Why are you doing that?
Whenever you go to wrap something up with a bow, I worry you're going to choke it and just ruin it.
I was going to wrap up what he said and use it as my conclusion. But anyway, maybe
Chris, you have one other thing?
Well, I just was going to say, we always have a Friends connection.
Yeah.
And the Princess Leia fantasy special or show. I think it was the one with Princess Leia. I could be wrong, but where Phoebe puts the bagels on her head, it's like,
not just that, but the iconic scene where Rachel, it was revealed to Rachel that every guy has the Princess Leia and the bikini fantasy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Friends always ends up coming back around.
So
yeah.
Tonight, Shell, you shelled it.
I did shell it this time.
But you killed it.
Yeah.
So that's what shelling it means now. You killed it.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome job. Listen, audience, live studio audience, 4th host, you guys crushed it today as well.
Mm-hmm.
I could not keep up with the comments to save my life. Cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. The room is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. We have dreams. If this never becomes anything other than what it is now, I'm so happy that we get to do it every week. But I fantasize someday the 3 of us are on a stage doing this. Yeah. I would love to see this, continue to grow. So thank you for what it is you're doing. If this was your first time, I have seen a couple different names. Hope we get you back again next week. If you're watching this on replay and stayed all the way through for the hour, come check us out Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here every week. And then next week, I'll be the host. So no idea what I'm going to do yet. Can promise you won't have anything to do with the Blues Brothers, but maybe Tom Petty.
Oh, God. Look at the ThreeView Mirror musical coming to a stage near you. No, I'm kidding.
So
We love
bye
having
from me,
you
guys.
guys.
Peace.
Thank you.
Later.
See ya.
Stay rad, everybody.
And boom. No? I'm going to get it right this time. I'm not stopping. One more time. Boom. Boom.
The yoga guy and couples
It
retreat.
won't work. All right. Peace, everybody. See ya.
Boom.
See ya.
Boom.
I'm trying to get the outro to play. It won't play.